If a rich woman suddenly returns from Europe looking for young girls, hide your daughter.
Do not ask her why she's looking for young girls. Do not ask her about her job. Do not admire her gold. Do not believe her smile.
Because some people don't return back home to help their village. Instead, they come back to feed from it. Adesuwa did not know this, and by the time she found out, going back home was no longer possible. Adesuwa was a 19-year-old girl living in a small, dusty village deep in Edo State. She was bright, beautiful, and full of pure, innocent dreams. She wanted to become a nurse. She wanted to build a good house for her parents. But in her family's small mud house, poverty was not just a problem. Poverty was a cruel monster that ate them alive every single day. Her father, Pa Ojo, was an old farmer whose body was broken from decades of hard labor under the sun. Her mother, Mama Ngozi, lay helplessly on a tiny mat on the dirty floor, her body trembling with a severe chest illness. They had no money for hospital bills. They had no money for basic drugs. Many nights, Adesuwa and her 3 younger brothers went to sleep with nothing in their hungry stomachs except warm water mixed with little pinch of salt just to full their bellies. Adesuwa would lay awake in the dark, listening to her little brothers crying softly from hunger, listening to her mother coughing up blood into an old rag, and watching her strong father weep in the corner like a helpless child. Her heart broke into 1,000 sharp pieces every single night. She prayed to God, begging for a way out. She just wanted her family to survive. Then, on a hot Tuesday afternoon, the quiet silence of the village was violently scattered. A massive black Mercedes SUV drove into the village square. It was surrounded by dark tinted glass, driving past the rusty mud houses like a spaceship from another world. It stopped right in front of the village chief's palace. The heavy car swung open, and out of it stepped Madame Osas. The entire village gasped in absolute shock. Madame Osas was a young woman who had left their village 10 years ago with nothing but a plastic bag. Now, she returned like a queen from a movie. She was dripping in pure Italian gold, massive gold chains around her neck, heavy gold bangles on her wrist, and her fingers were covered in sparkling diamonds. She wore expensive designer lace that swept the dirty dust. She opened her leather bag, pulled out thick bundles of crisp $100 notes, and began to spray them into the air like worthless pieces of papers. Children screamed and scrambled in the dirt. Old men danced. Women fell to the ground, singing praises to her name. They called her the savior of Edo State. She was called the big Italian lady. They believed she was the living proof that traveling to Italy was the shortcut to heaven on earth. Adesuwa's father saw the rain of money from his farm and ran like a madman to the village square. He saw the gold, he saw the dollars. A blind, desperate fire ignited inside his brain. He ran back to his house, grabbed Adesuwa forcefully by the arm, and dragged her straight to Madame Osas' temporary mansion at the edge of the town. When they arrived there, the compound was already packed full up. Over 50 desperate, poverty-stricken families were standing outside in the hot sun, holding their young, beautiful daughters by the hand, begging for an audience with Madame Osas. Madame Osas sat on a massive red throne on her veranda, sipping cold champagne. She did not look at these poor villagers as human beings. To her, they were like desperate flies. She made the parents clean her dusty compounds with their bare hands, wash her massive car, and carried heavy buses on their heads before she would even grant them even 2 minutes of her time. When it was finally Pa Ojo's turn, the old man fell flat on his chest in the dirt, weeping uncontrollably. "Please, my great madam," Pa Ojo cried out. "Look at my daughter Adesuwa. She is 90 years old. She is respectful. She is pure. She is hardworking. Please take her to Italy. Let her work and send even a small piece of money home so that my sick wife will not die on the floor. Please, Madam Osas, save my family from this grave of poverty." Madam Osas slowly looked up. Her cold, sharp eyes scanned Adesuwa from head to toe. She inspected Adesuwa's skin, checked her teeth, measured her waist, and stared at her hips like a butcher examining a cow at a slaughterhouse. A cold, creepy smile formed in her face. White people in Italy are desperately looking for young Nigerian girls. Madam Osas lied, her voice sounding as smooth and sweet as honey. They need young, pretty girls to work in giant luxury hotels, supermarkets, and high-class restaurants. They pay millions of nairas every single month. I'm a good woman. I'm godly, and I just want to help my people. Don't worry, I will take your daughter to Italy. I will buy her passport, pay for her flight ticket. I will give her food and even give her a place to stay until she now buys her own house. Adesuwa's heart pounded heavily in her chest. Tears of pure joy flooded her eyes. She looked at her weeping father and smiled boldly. She thought God had finally heard her midnight prayer. She imagined buying a big house for her parents, paying for her mother's surgery, and sending her brothers to the best schools in Nigeria. But of course, business is business, Madam Osas added casually, pulling out a thick official-looking legal document from her purse. "Because I am spending millions of naira of my hard-earned money to process her travel documents and flight tickets to Europe, she must work and pay me back $40,000. My people, $40,000 to a poor village girl who had never seen 50,000 naira in her entire life. That number sounded like an impossible, terrifying mountain. Adesuwa opened her mouth to speak, but Madam Osas quickly waved her gold-covered hand and laughed loudly. "Do not let the number scare you, my beautiful girl." Madam Osas chuckled smoothly. "In Italy, $40,000 is just like 14 naira. The white people throw money at workers. You will work at a high-class hotel and finish paying this $40,000 in just 2 or 3 weeks. After that, all the millions of dollars will be yours. I will not take anything else." Paul did not pause to think. He did not even ask questions. He did not consult anyone. Quickly, he grabbed the document and with his shaky hands, he filled it, unknowingly signing his precious daughter's soul into demonic slavery. My people, did you just see what just happened? Pa Ojo did not even ask any question. He did not read even a single line in that document. He just grabbed the pen and signed off the destiny of his daughter forever. This is what poverty does to the mind of a parent. It makes them ignore every warning sign that is right in front of them. 3 days later, the morning of departure arrived. Adesuwa packed her few worn-out clothes into a small bag. She knelt beside her sick mother's mat, kissing her forehead. "I am going to bring back life for us, Mama," she said, crying tears of hope. "Hold on for me. I will send money in 3 weeks." Her mother held her hand tightly, crying tears she could not explain. Pa Ojo walked to Adesuwa to Madam Osas' massive compound, feeling like the proudest father in Edo State. There, Adesuwa joined 49 other girls. All of them were laughing, talking excitedly, dreaming of the bright golden streets of Europe. As the sun began to set behind the dark palm trees, the warm atmosphere inside the compound suddenly turned cold. No passenger bus arrived to take them to the airport. Instead, the heavy iron gates of the compound slammed shut with a deafening sound. Clang! Out of the deep shadows of the compound stepped 6 massive towering men. They were wearing dark clothes. They were armed with heavy iron rods, wooden planks, and iron cutlasses. Adesuwa's stomach instantly dropped into her mouth. The laughter among the 50 girls died instantly. Madam Osas, Adesuwa whispered, her voice trembling as she stepped backward. Where is the bus to the airport? You said our flight to Italy is tonight. Madam Osas did not even bother to turn around. She was standing by the veranda, sipping wine quietly. She let out a laughter so cold. But before Adesuwa could even finish her sentence, the largest bodyguard walked forward. His giant hand swung through the air, slapping Adesuwa across the face with the force of a speeding truck. Pa! The impact lifted Adesuwa off her feet. She crashed violently onto the hard ground, her head spinning wildly as thick blood gushed from her nose and her mouth. Shut up your mouth, you stupid farm goats, the bodyguard roared. Who told you that bush animals like you take airplanes to Europe? Pure chaos exploded inside the compounds. The 50 girls began to scream. They began to cry out in absolute terror, running towards the locked gates like trapped animals. But the 6 armed bodyguards showed no mercy. They ran into the crowd of crying girls, swinging their heavy iron rods and wooden planks with brutal force. They beat the young girls mercilessly. They kicked them in the ribs, struck them across their backs, stepped on their hands until the compound floor was covered in a pool of blood, torn clothes, and screaming, helpless body. Listen to me, all of you, Madam Osas shouted, walking down the stairs slowly, her sweet, gentle voice completely gone, replaced by a cold, demonic anger. From this second, you are no longer human beings. You do not have name. You do not have any right. You are my property. If any of you tries to scream, my men will snap your neck and bury your corpse in the forest, and your useless parents will never find your bones. The girls wept silently, hugging each other on the bloody floor, shaking in uncontrollable fear. At midnight, where the entire village was fast asleep, the heavy gates of the mansion were opened. The bruised, bleeding and traumatized girls were dragged up like sacks of cocoa and thrown violently into the back of 2 filthy wooden trucks, the kind of truck that was used to transport cattle to the market. They were not driven towards Lagos airport. They were driven deep inside the heart of an ancient pitch-black forest miles away from the village. The trucks came to a sudden stop in front of a terrifying ancient shrine hidden deep inside the jungle. Human skulls hung from the ancient iroko trees. Out of a dark mud house stepped a terrifying native doctor. His entire body was covered in red chalk, white chalk, and dried blood. Around his neck was made of necklace, human teeth, and iron bells that jingled with every step that he took. Pull off your clothes, all of you, the native doctor shouted, his voice sounding like 2 heavy stones grinding together. The armed bodyguards rushed in, forcefully tearing the clothes of the crying, terrifying girls until all 50 of them stood completely naked, shivering in the freezing night air, weeping from deep shame and terror. You are about to swear the oath of eternal blood, Madam Osas screamed, laughing like a demon. This shrine will hold your souls until your 40,000 naira debt is paid in full. The native doctor forced the girls to line up one by one in front of a dark wooden idol smeared with cold blood. He took a sharp razor blade. With zero hesitation, he grabbed Adesuwa forcefully by her hand. He sliced her skin, collecting her blood into a woody calabash. He then grabbed a pair of scissors. He cut a lock of her hair, scraped the dirt from her fingernails, and forcefully cut hair from her private parts. He threw the hair, blood, and nails into a red cloth and stuffed it into the belly of an idol. He forced Adesuwa to drink the bitter blood mixture from the calabash. "Hear me, O great shrine of the ancestors," he chanted. If Adesuwa ever runs away from Europe, if she ever steps into a police station, if she ever reveals the name of Madame Osas to any living soul, let her blood dry up like water in a desert. Let her skin rot from her bones. Let her go mad, eating her own feces on the streets of Italy until she dies a miserable death. Adesuwa fell face flat on the cold dirt, choking, sobbing, and vomiting the bitter liquid from her throat. Her dignity was gone. Her hope was crushed. She realized with absolute terrifying clarity that the golden dream of Italy was the biggest lie she has ever been told. She was not going to work in any hotel. She was a slave condemned to a living nightmare. After all was done, the girls were forced back into their clothes and pushed into the truck like filthy cows. Adesuwa pressed her swollen, bleeding face against a tiny crack in the woody planks of the truck, looking into the morning. What she saw made her heart scattered into a million pieces. She saw a sharp taxi pull up to the forest edge. Madame Osas, dressed in a fresh, stunning white lace, stepped into the car. She was heading straight to the Lagos International Airport to board a luxurious flight directly back to Italy. Meanwhile, the driver of the truck jumped into his seat, slammed the rusty door, and turned around to look at the 50 weeping girls inside the back of the truck. A dark, evil smile spread across his face. "Look at yourselves, poor little animals," the driver said, spitting black tobacco onto the floor. "You think you are going to Italy on a plane? You are traveling by the road through the desert to Libya, and 3 weeks in the desert will teach you the true meaning of hell." Adesuwa's breath got in her throat. Her blood ran ice cold. The Sahara Desert. She had heard the horrors of the desert, the burning sun, the thirst, the armed bandits, and the massive deaths. Among the 50 girls sat a 16-year-old girl named Blessing. Blessing was shivering violently, holding her stomach in pure agony. Blessing looked at Adesuwa with terrifying eyes and whispered, "Auntie Adesuwa, I cannot breathe. I don't think I will make it through the desert." "Hold on, Blessing," Adesuwa wept, wrapping her arms around the young girls. "We will survive. We have to make it." My people, this story is entirely fiction, but it is based on real life experience in our world today. The heavy truck moved to life, spewing black smoke, and moved forward into the dirty road, beginning the long, brutal journey towards the border of Nigeria. For 2 good days, the truck drove without stopping. No food, no water. The 50 girls were packed so tightly that they had to take turns standing and sitting. The heat inside the truck was unbearable, turning the air into suffocating furnace. The girls were fainting, screaming, and begging to God for mercy. On the 3rd day, the night of the 3rd day, the truck suddenly came to a stop at a bush near the edge of the border. The wooden doors were violently thrown open. The cold midnight air whipped through the truck. Standing outside were 3 heavy, dark men, wearing camouflage and carrying giant AK-47 assault rifles. They were the desert smugglers, human traffickers who specialized in moving human cargoes through the lawless sands. The chief smuggler, a tall man with a deep scar running across his face,
pointed his flashlight straight into the truck, blinding the crying girls. "Listen to me," the chief smuggler barked in a harsh, ruthless voice. "From here, the truck turns back. The rest of the journey through the Sahara Desert to Libya is on foot. You will walk under the burning sun for 15 good days." The girls let out a collective scream of terror. "And hear this," the smuggler shouted, slamming his heavy gun against the truck. "Water is strictly measured, 1 cup of water per day. If you fall behind, we will leave you to die. If you collapse in the sand, nobody will carry you. The vultures will pick your eyes out even before you die." The smugglers began to drag the weak, terrified girls from the truck, kicking them into a line. Adesuwa helped Blessing step down from the truck, but as Blessing's feet hit the sand, her weak legs gave way and she collapsed face onto the ground, crying softly, too weak to stand up. Immediately, the chief smuggler walked over. He did not help her. He raised his heavy leather boots and kicked Blessing brutally in her ribs. Crunch! Blessing let out a sharp scream of pain, folding into a ball in the sand. "Get up, you useless girl," the smuggler growled, putting a heavy bullet into his gun. He pointed the gun directly at Blessing's forehead. "I say get up right now, or I will put a bullet through your head and save you the stress of dying." "No, please," Adesuwa screamed, throwing her own body over Blessing's trembling body. "Please, sir, don't shoot her. I will carry her. I will carry her myself." The smuggler looked down at Adesuwa, a cruel, monstrous laugh escaping his mouth. "You want to carry her?" he said, grabbing Adesuwa forcefully by her braided hair and pulling her head backward until her neck nearly snapped. "Look around you, girl. Look at the desert." He pointed his flashlight out into the endless pitch black space ahead. The cold wind howled across the sand like a chorus of screaming ghosts. My wonderful viewers, where are you watching this video from? Kindly share with us in the comment section the country you are watching this video from. I want to see how far the story is traveling. Out there is 3,000 miles of pure death, the smuggler whispered into Adesuwa's ear, his hot breath smelling of raw onions. No water, no shade, only heat, hunger, and armed Libya bandits waiting in the dark to take what they want from your bodies. Out of you, 50 girls, I guarantee you that 30 of you will be rotting corpses before we even think of reaching the ocean. He pushed Adesuwa hard into the sand. He pointed his gun towards the dark, endless desert. "Forward march!" he screamed into the night. "I say move forward. Welcome to the Sahara Desert, you little slaves." Adesuwa stood in the hot burning sand, holding the hand of a dying 16-year-old girl, staring into the dark space of death ahead of her. She looked up to the moon, tears flowing down her bruised cheeks, realizing that the journey to Italy was not a dream. It was a one-way ticket straight to hell, and there was no turning back. 50 girls standing in the desert at midnight. No phone, no water, no food, no passport to go back home. My people, this story is based on real life experience from real girls, real villages all over the country. Kindly share this video to every female child, to every mother, to prevent such things from happening. Truth is coming very, very soon. Kindly subscribe and turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss out when we drop part 2. Until then, I remain your host, By Adaeze. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for sticking to this channel. Thank you for how far you've been with us. Until the next part 2, I'll see you then. Bye bye. Thanks for watching.